Hello, my name is Matthew Dworek. Today we're going to be doing a report on the events of the impact of supply and demand of oil. So the introduction is the oil export is considering a proposal to increase its oil stores to better prepare for events that impact the market price of oil. They've asked me as a member of the cost department to determine activities that affect the price of oil. They have requested a report explaining the various effects of the events on equilibrium price and quantity. The events being reported on in this presentation are natural disasters near the outlet of the pipeline, a natural disaster near the inlet of the pipeline, a recession, and an increase in the availability of an alternative energy source, such as clean energy or electricity. This presentation will include a supply curve for each event along with a description of the event and an explanation of the supply curve. Natural disasters events near the inlet of the pipeline is expected to reduce the supply in the market, which would drive up the prices. This reduction reduces the availability amount of crude oil to be refined into commodity-used fossil fuels. Natural disasters like hurricanes or flood could potentially cause damage to the pipelines, pumping equipment, machinery, and structures. Events of this magnitude also increase the risk of leaks and/or explosions. Disruptions like this could cause prolonged closure of production and market disruption. The newly created scarcity event will drive market prices up, demanding a market response, which will manifest itself in the form of increased production by those unaffected by the disaster and increase in imports and take advantage of higher prices. On this graph, S1 shows the supply curve before the disaster as prices are $5 per gallon at 70,000 gallons, about right here. After the disaster, S2, right here, curve illustrates the new price is $6 per gallon at 60,000 gallons of oil. Curve shows an increase in price with a decrease in supply. The curve has shifted left, and the new equilibrium price is $6 a gallon. Right here. Natural disaster event near the outlet of the pipeline is expected to reduce the supply in the market, which could drive up the price. Natural disasters like an earthquake or fire could potentially cause damage to the pipeline, processing equipment, machinery, and structures. Events of magnitudes also increase the risk of leaks or explosions. Disruption like these can cause prolonged closure of production and market disruption. The newly created scarcity event will drive marketing prices up, demanding a market response, which will manifest itself in the form of increased production by those unaffected by the disaster and an increase in imports to take advantage of the higher prices, such as other investors coming in and investing in the opportunities that we're not producing. All right, as we show S1 here on the supply curve before the disaster, we're $5 per gallon at 70,000 gallons, about right here, $5. After the disaster, S2 curve right here illustrates that it went up to $8 per gallon at 40,000 gallons of oil, or down to 40,000 gallons. The curve shows an increase of price with a decrease in supply, the scarcity. So the less oil we have, the more it costs. The curve is shifted left and the new equilibrium price is $8 a gallon. Now, a recession can be identified as an economic decline where a C in the GDP is accompanied by a decrease in trade, manufacturing, and a job loss. Something similar, something happened to that in 2008 when we saw the collapse of the housing market, if we all do remember that. With a reduction of the production industrial activities coupled with a diminishing workforce, we would experience a surplus or a glut in the market. Diminishing demand will dictate lower prices, create a new equilibrium price. The lower estimate will bring the order up to a point where it meets the supply, the equilibrium. Until such a time where outside influences like government stimulus packages increase economic output. So unless we have government stamp in and supplement and move the equilibrium, we're just left to the market's demands. So we have recession supply curve. D1 shows the demand curve before the recession where it's $5 per gallon. So D1 right here It's at 80,000 gallons after the disaster, the recession. And then we have D2 curve illustrates the new at $4 a gallon at 70,000 gallons of oil. And it shows a decrease in the price, and that's the glut. The curve has shifted less than the new equilibrium price is $4. So the increase of availability of alternative energy sources could pose a threat to the oil market. We see an increased interest and demand for alternatives in the home heating oil markets like solar and natural gas. The gas market is also facing an uncertain future with ever increasing shift in society's views on environmental and how fossil fuels contribute to its decline. We've seen the introduction of electric cars, consumer markets such as Tesla, the new Chevy Volts, and Toyota Priuses, which have advertised lower maintenance, cheaper alternatives, and their fossil fuel-powered counterparts. An increase in the supply of these lower-cost alternative energy sources can cause a glut in the market, driving market prices down in an attempt to increase demand and compete. So D1 shows the demand curve before the flood of the alternative energies right here. So we're $5 per gallon at $70,000 or 70,000 gallons after and then D2 right here illustrates it's $3 a gallon at 50,000 gallons for oil. And that's the surplus of the glut. It says the curve is shifted left as the new equilibrium price is now $3. And that's for the energy sources demand curve. So in conclusion, I agree that the proposal to increase the oil stores to prepare for the events that impact the market price of oil. And as a member of the cost department, I was given the task to determine that events can affect the price of oil. A report explaining various effects of the events of equilibrium price and quantities was completed by considering the following effects. As the natural disaster near the inlet of the pipeline, a natural disaster near the outlet of the pipeline, a recession in the GDP, increase in availability of alternative energy. In the case of natural disaster, the increase in oil stores would be a great benefit to the company. In the case of the recession and alternative energy scenario, it wouldn't. Being said, I still agree that the proposal to increase the oil stores and some indicators and trends can be monitored to mitigate the effects of the recession and competition of alternative energy producers. The possible gains from surge pricing during scarcity events is what I base my recommendations on. All right, thank you for your time. Have a great day.